All right. We're live after a extended hiatus. We're back for episode 15. I can't believe it's 15. I don't know if that's a lot or a little, but we're making a triumphant return with some summer power rankings. We've had a lot of activity going on and excited to talk about it. So I've got Anthony and Brandon here to break it all down. How are you doing, gentlemen?
I'm doing great. I'm just excited to see all the activity in the league and having the drafts a little bit earlier and yeah, getting some action going on.
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited. So excited. Everything's going by slow. Can't wait for the season to start already.
Good deal. Well, this will be a Fast and Furious power rankings. Mostly what I have done here is recapped last year. So I have if you guys can see on the screen here, I have last year's final standing finishes basically with all of the record. These are the end of season playoff standings with our records, so we can see those, and then also the points that we had scored. And after all of this year, or I guess the off season's activities, the trades, the draft, which we just finished, I think a week ago or so, just lots of activity going on. I kind of collected my thoughts and put together what I'm deeming as of right now would basically be the threat to winning this upcoming year's title. So I'm really kind of specifically just looking at this year, not future years. Obviously, some people are a little bit heavier on like the draft picks and kind of future leading strategies, and some people are kind of in win now mode and everything. So I'm specifically only looking at this year when I'm kind of putting these rankings together. I know Zach put, or not Zach, Brandon put together some rankings of his, and so I'm really interested to kind of contrast those with what I've got on here. And then Anthony, I'm sure you've got some thoughts as well. But I think I'm just gonna jump right into it. Sound good?
Let's go.
Yep. Yep.
Let's go.
Ready.
So I am gonna start at the bottom, and this is where I have actually kind of like the most info here. Wrote a little bit of a report on it. I'm glad you're here, Brandon. I'm glad you're here
Oh
because I
yes.
think I think this is some good conversation. So the summary that I had on Brandon specifically was I think basically at some point in the off season or possibly last playoffs or whatever, basically whenever moves could start, I think Brandon had a little bit of a flip switch and he's determined that he needs to be a little bit more forward focused or not forward focused, future year focused. And so I kind of feel like at this present moment, and I know it's early on in the summer, we've got many months to go, but at this present moment, it seems as though that's the mode that he's in, and that's kind of manifested in a lot of the actions that he's taken. I took a look at the transactions and the number of trades. I believe since the season ended, since last season ended, I counted, I think, 7 trades that Brandon has done, an impressive number for sure. Um, but basically, the theme for most of those trades was essentially, again, kind of selling off potentially a little bit older players and acquiring assets that are either younger or just draft picks in general. I summarized a lot of them, and I do have some interesting an interesting summary here. So I do want to ask you, Brandon, because you're here. So all right, the first big trade that you did of the offseason, I think this is probably the first trade of the offseason. You traded the 101, who we now know as Brees Hall, and a late second for Jalen Hurts.
Hmm.
Does it ring a bell?
I did. Yep. Yeah,
Would
that does.
would love to know your thoughts on that. And it's an interesting one because I think, I don't know if you knew that Brees Hall was going to be who that was at the time. There was,
Yes,
that was still a little
100%.
bit early on in the process and everything like that. But I mean, walk me through that because that's trading the 101 and getting a quarterback, and then a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, which is, there's lots of different opinions about him. Would love to know like your thought process around that.
So so yeah, I knew that I had the 101, and I knew I was gonna take Brees Hall if I were to keep it. But I felt like I needed a QB because I don't know, I was only rocking with Mac Jones, and I traded Baker, and so I had that 101, and just this class didn't have you know, the QB talent like last year or the year coming up. So I took a risk on Hertz, Because I figured if Hertz was in this year's draft in the situation like the team that he's in right now, he would go the 101 easy. And at the time when I traded him, I felt like Walker could have been in the middle, like the 105, 106, which I had those picks, or 106, I think. Yeah, 106, I had that pick. I felt like either Walker or Spiller would be there. And no, they weren't. So I just figured I'm just going to go all in on the rebuild, get my QBs up because I feel like in a super flex, if you don't have two like top 15, top 20 QBs at the very least to start, you're gonna have a hard time winning a lot of games. So I'm already trying to dig myself out of a big hole as it is. So I felt like if I can establish my QBs now, I can. It'd be easier for me to rebuild in the next year or two. So I just pick a direction and I'm sticking to it instead of trying to compete with the middle of the road team, and yeah, just go from there. But yeah, I put myself at number 12 too, but I know where I'm at. So yeah.
I mean, I'd
Interesting.
be excited for Hurts because they got AJ Brown or whatnot, and
I made
if
that trade
he
before
takes a
he
step up as Lamar Jackson, if he has
Mhm,
Josh Allen, learns and gain some accuracy, like he'd be a huge threat down the road. You could
mhm.
even flip him for 3, 4 picks if you needed to, kind of thing,
Yeah,
if he
and
takes off this year.
he's only increased in value since I got him. Like when I got him, it was just a huge risk. Like he was only guaranteed the next year. He wasn't guaranteed anything after that, and he still isn't. He's still only guaranteed the next year. But I mean, the reports out of training camp is he's improved, and he just got AJ Brown. So they're giving him all the tools to do the job. So we'll see. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, I am pretty sure you made the trade before the NFL draft itself happened. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
So at that point, it was unclear. Brees Hall was probably going number one, but, depending on, maybe if a certain team drafts another certain player or something like that, things could change a little bit or whatever. Or maybe Philadelphia, drafted a quarterback to compete with Jalen Hurts. Like I could definitely see those things,
Hmm.
shaking things up or whatever. But obviously that didn't happen. So just that was a huge swing that I thought was noteworthy. The other interesting thing too was you had traded the 109 to me for two 2022 seconds. So basically, it looked like that was a move to just kind of establish some depth, give yourself basically like more darts to be throwing, if
Hmm.
you will. The interesting thing was I later traded that 109 to Zach, and Zach drafted Malik Willis. I'll talk about Zach, but in short, I thought Malik Willis at 109 is an absolute disaster. I really liked Malik Willis kind of like earlier on heading into the draft. I thought he could have gone higher, but because he got
Shade.
drafted, because he got drafted so late by the Titans,
Hmm.
and he's got like a pretty decent quarterback ahead of him, and he's kind of viewed as like a project. I mean, if he would have won in the first round, it's like okay, the team obviously believes in him, but like the fact that he went in the third, I thought was just like okay, like they're just taking a gamble and it's going to be kind of a long shot. So I thought that was sort of a disaster for Zach. I know this isn't about Zach, but anyways, you've made a lot of other deals. You traded away the 106, which ended up being Garrett Wilson, who I think is going to be a fantastic player. Also for two 2022 seconds, who ended up being Matt Corral and Jelani Woods. Does that
Hmm.
sound right? Matt Corral and
Yep.
Jelani Woods.
Yep.
I think that one is a little bit rough because Corral is a backup QB who may or may not get a shot, but he's probably not going to be super sticky. And then like Jelani Woods, I understand had like the perfect combine, so I think that's really cool. He scored like the highest a tight end has like ever scored, which is really exciting. But it's really weird because he also like at the same time wasn't good in college, so those are always kind of interesting things. So I mean, right off the bat, there it's like you traded two first rounders to base and you turn those into four second rounders, just again kind of giving yourself a lot of depth.
Hmm.
Anything to expand on that thought process there?
Um, yeah, and just like you said, just some dart throws. I believe my picks were Corral, Jelani Woods, Rashad White,
Hmm.
and was that it?
uh, I think you also one of the picks ended up being Z
Oh,
White.
Isaiah.
I can't,
No, Isaiah Spiller
oh
was
yes,
my.
yes, yes, yes.
So Yeah, just some dart throws. I wanted running back heavy, just to if I hit on one, then like if they ended up being a starter or fantasy relevant, then that would kind of make next year's draft easier, or I could flip them.
You got David Bell as well. Just throwing that
Oh
out
yeah,
there.
I did get David Bell. I'm excited for him, David Bell. But Johnny Woods, just I was gonna go with Trey McBride because he was there, but he's just a little small for like tight ends. Um, and he dominated in college, but Johnny Woods, like you said, he had the perfect combine scores, and I mean he was the draft capital's there, so I'm willing to hold him as a stash piece. Corral was a dart throw. I liked him. I like I want to say I liked him the most out of everybody before like all the hype around Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett being the first one drafted. I did not like his where he got drafted. Obviously, I think he was a third round, like in the 80s or 90s or something like that. But
I think he's on the
no,
Panthers, right?
yeah,
Yep.
nonetheless, I liked Corral as a player. Um, Kind of getting Russell Wilson vibes from him. Third round pick. I'm not saying he's gonna win the job or anything, but everyone's saying he's a great leader and all that stuff. And so I just feel like if he gets his shot, he can hold on to it. And he's mobile too, so if Sam Darnold gets hurt or whatever, I feel like he can do decent. Um, and then Isaiah Spiller, that that guy is actually the reason why I was fine trading away the my two first round picks because I was aiming for him before the draft, before he had a horrible combine. Because me and Anthony were talking, he was some people's running back ones before Brees Hall,
Hmm.
and so that's why I was fine, trading away the 101 because I knew Brees Hall would go in the top tier and I can get Walker or Spiller, and then Spiller fell to the second round or in third and fourth rounds in some people's rookie drafts. So I was like, if I can just get Spiller, I know his combine sucked and stuff, but his situation's not bad. I can get him and Rashad White, and then just kind of stack up on depth. Which, spoiler alert, I traded to Rashad White literally, I think, right after I drafted him. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's my thought process. And I wasn't never gonna pick Garrett Wilson. I have Elijah Moore. I believe in Elijah Moore more than Garrett Wilson. But I would have picked Jamison Williams, but I was fine. I don't need receivers, and those were like the only good players at the time, like in the middle of the first round. And I was like, I was fine getting the depth instead of the receivers. I like my receiver room.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Any thoughts, Anthony?
No, I think that yeah sums it up. I mean, I think Brandon's roster is pretty young, and I think in a couple years he'll be a contender. But as of this year, I don't think he stands a chance.
yeah,
I
no.
I think these things definitely move in cycles for sure, and the NFL I think is a really good example of, the players turn over fairly quickly, right? And so the teams that can get an influx of, higher draft picks, and especially like if those picks are hitting, like those fortunes can kind of change rather quickly or whatever. So I mean, just like Brandon said, he's kind of committing to a direction towards the future, and so it will, probably will take a couple of years or whatever, but at least you're on the path, at least you're in a direction. Really quickly, and I know we're spending a lot of time on Brandon's team too. Have to mention the Najee Harris trade. So ended up selling Najee Harris, and a 2022 third rounder and a second rounder for two 2023 firsts. So I know firsthand, I know you were looking for basically like three firsts for quite a while. Ended up settling on two firsts. One of them was Anthony's, which will presumably be late because
Hmm.
Anthony's team looks to be pretty strong, especially the fact that you're adding Najee Harris to an already strong team. But the other one is your pick, which is really interesting because I know Anthony and I've had these conversations too. In that sense, you're sort of controlling your own destiny, right? The lottery ticket that was your pick is not in somebody else's hands; it's in your own hands. And so, like, if you're doing really, really well, you might be able to move that one around. And if you're not doing really, really well, at least you have that consolation prize of your own pick. So I think that was kind of interesting. The fact that it was, you didn't get quite what you wanted with the three, but you got two of them, and one of them is your own, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think
Sorry, go ahead.
honestly,
Go
I
ahead.
think I think I was saying that was one of the key pieces I held from Brandon is being able to use that in my bargain agreements because again, he does have his own ownership. He can tank and he can take that pick to where he wants, or he can do a little bit better if he wants. But at the end of the day, he'll be able to control that pick.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone knows, but those freaking 23 picks are like worth more than gas right now. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, that's the cost of doing business. I want to rebuild. He had my pick, which my picks get tossed around all over the place. So I wanted that back, control my own destiny, even though it's, like even if I were to do last place, it's a lottery pick system, right? So it's a higher percentage of getting the first pick. You're not guaranteed, but
I think
you know,
a straight up last I think is I want to say 24 point something percent.
yeah. And next year's draft class is so deep. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. So, um, and like I love Najee. It was really hard, and I wanted 3 picks because everyone I'm saying, he's like everyone I'm listening to on different podcasts. They have him pretty high up. RB top 5 at least. So I wanted 3 picks solely because Johnny had 2 picks for T Higgins. So I felt like if I got 2 picks for Najee, that'd be a failure on my part and to him because he is worth more straight up. So, but no
Can
one
I
else had
can I
more
just
picks.
for the record also mention that T Higgins is just like the offseason darling. Everyone loves him. I don't know if you hear this. All of the newscasts and everything. Everybody loves T Higgins. I feel like 2 first rounders is probably still the right price.
Mm,
No,
mm,
It's it's not
not even
it's
close.
not a disaster. It's not a disaster. I look at Johnny's team or whatever. I mean, we'll get to Johnny's team, but like Johnny's team is solid, and T Higgins is a big part of that. T
Tell you
Higgins
what,
is a
if
big part
if
of
it
that.
was a 2022, the 111 and 112, absolutely, I agree on that.
Okay, last but not least, we'll move on after moving on of Brandon's team. Brandon just made so many moves. He also sold Dwayne Eskridge for a 2022 fourth, which ended up being Kyron Williams. So he's out on Eskridge. And then last but not least, this is the switcheroo here. After he's sold everything off for other things, he buys Gabriel Davis and a 2023 second for 2025 first and a 2025 second. So, I mean, you've got 2 seconds in there. They cancel each other out. Basically, it's Gabriel Davis for a 2025 first. And that one
mm.
was a little bit perplexing to me because I understand picking up Gabriel Davis, good player, obviously, but it doesn't fit the theme of the rest of the things that you were doing. So I felt like that was just a noteworthy move, and maybe you just feel like Gabriel Davis is just worth more than a first, so you're just trying to like pick up value just in general wherever you find it. What any comments on that one? Just because again, that one kind of was completely different from all the other moves you did.
Um, I'm not just looking for picks. I'm looking for young talent and wide receivers. They last pretty long, or they last longer than typically the other positions. I feel like he's primed for a breakout year. And if he hits, I can either keep him, and he'll just help my campaign next year, or I can flip him for more than what I bought him. And the 23 second, I felt like was worth it too to throw in there for a 25 for a
Hmm.
2025 second just to help get me another pick in next year's draft because I'm not totally tanking for like the next 2 years. I feel like if I can get a couple key hits this year and then a couple key draft picks next year, I feel like I can be right in it next year. So
Good deal. Good deal. Well, we did an in-depth analysis of Brandon's team because Brandon was here, so appreciate taking the extra time on that.
no worries.
I think we'll spend a lot less time on the other teams here, but moving on to number 11, at least for myself, I've got Zach. And Zach, I think if we look at last year's,
How dare you?
if we
You
look at
took that man's quarterback.
well, okay, that's part of the situation, right? We got to take a look at where they're at. Zach was fifth last year, so this would be a bit of a drop off. But
Mm.
take a look at the transactions and everything. Made a huge trade with me, obviously. He pushed a lot of his present value or previous present value with Josh Allen and Kelsey. Probably wise of him to cash out on Kelsey because he probably only will have a year or two at most likely, but then Josh Allen as well. And so this is mostly just kind of a reflection of that because a lot of those assets were future assets, or they were the ones where basically he picked up Malik Willis, and the other person he drafted was, oh my gosh, do you remember Anthony? I don't have it on the screen right now. He drafted Malik Willis. Okay, so he got Kenneth Walker, who I
James
think is
Cook.
a good pick. Okay, James Cook and um, Malik Willis. I already mentioned Malik Willis. I felt like that was a major miss to be drafting that early. It could hit, and he's a quarterback, and he's a running quarterback, and so I understand that. But he also, I feel like there's a high likelihood that he doesn't hit because he was a third round pick. He's going to have to beat out Ryan Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill is a perfectly serviceable quarterback that I think will be hard for Malik Willis to beat out. I just think that was a little bit rough there. So, anyways, that's really kind of the main thing was he sort of lost a lot of talent relative to the rest of the league. He also made some other moves. He made a trade with Anthony, a small trade that was he just picked up some extra fourth rounders for a third rounder, and then he sent away Chiba Hubbard for two sixth rounders. So that was interesting, and then he made a bigger trade. He traded away Stephon Diggs. So again, selling off or current assets and a fourth. And he received Brian Edwards, Romeo Dobbs, Tyrion Davis Price,
Mm-hmm.
and a first and a second. So, and those are in 2025. So again, he just kind of cashed out a lot of things this year. So I feel like he definitely needs to take a couple notches down from that, from my perspective. That's why I've got Zach at 11. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Zach is, if I had to guess, his strategy is to get as many darts as he can, see if he can strike gold, and then sell those pieces off. I don't think he was planning on keeping a whole lot of them. I think he's going to try and flip them. The only reason I think that is because he did draft a lot of running backs that, if they're mostly for competing now, and if he's not competing now and he's selling pieces off, I would only think he would flip them for, higher values of what he got them for. Yeah, because even the James Cook in the first round just doesn't seem like something you'd want to keep on for too long. He's gonna be a second RB right now, and past him, he's got a lot of tools and a lot of weapons in Buffalo. So I don't see him being the bell cow running back that's going to be a pinnacle piece in a winning team.
Yeah, I have him number 11 as well, just like you. I just feel like, yeah, after he traded Allen and Kelsey to you, he he is he's in rebuild mode. I mean, he has a shot to be competitive. He picked up Geno, and he got Tyler Huntley from me. If Lamar goes down, Huntley can pick up the same amount of points Lamar would score if he gets hurt. So, but he just has too many bounces have to go his way for him to be competitive. But I mean, he has a lot of assets, and if he hits on like Kenneth Walker, he's a really good prospect. If he hits on any of those guys, then should be good. So
I was excited about getting Kenneth Walker when before the whole Josh Allen thing kind of came together, and I was on the clock with that pick, and I was trying to like do all my research and make sure it was like the right thing to do and everything. I had
mhm,
talked myself into Kenneth Walker for a couple of reasons. First of all, I really thought Kenneth Walker was going to be really good, and I think he still will be. So like none of my
mhm,
opinions have changed. I think Kenneth Walker is going to be good. I wasn't worried that he didn't catch a lot of passes in college because I think he just didn't. His system at Michigan State just didn't ask him to catch a lot of passes. They had a different system or whatever, and I think he caught the ball well in the combine and everything. So I'm like, okay, like that's fine. He'll get his points. I'm not too worried about that. And then I feel like the thing that is always, I think an element of our league specifically is like when you have popular Seahawks players and most of us live in the Seattle area, I always feel like you bump them up a couple extra notches. And,
yeah,
I was excited to have a player like that on my team because I usually don't have very many Seahawks on my team. So it ended up on Zach. He's on Zach's team. Zach is probably, just as big of a Seahawks fan as anybody in the league, and so I'm glad that he's on Zach's team. But like I said, I thought he whiffed on the other two picks that he got there.
I
I
just
think
want to
Zach's.
touch.
Go ahead, Brady.
I just want to touch on the Malik Willis part. I think it was a reach too, but I mean this. I want to give him some slack because I this quarterback class is doo doo. So like, if that's the dude he wanted and that's the pick he had, I'm not gonna blame him for picking Malik. He could have picked the four other quarterbacks there, um, and it would have been the same thing. If he needed a quarterback there and he didn't think it wasn't gonna be there for him like next round or his next pick, then I'm not gonna blame him for that.
I mean, I think, just tacking on that real quick, is Malik probably has the biggest upside. He can capture lightning in a bottle kind of thing.
Yep.
He is definitely a project, so it's a risk, but at the same time, it's kind of like Zach's team. Like he's in a perfect spot where he can go either way. If his veterans are kind of panning out, he could buy more assets and could potentially compete. Or if only a few of them are panning out, he could sell those assets. So I think he's in a
Mhm.
good like middle road where he can go either way. If it hits for him. If it doesn't, then rebuild.
And they were saying the same thing about Hertz and Lamar. I know Hertz and Lamar had better draft capital than Willis, but I mean, the same type prospect and run, raw talent with the arm, but he can run, so could pan out. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar went in the first and he won the Heisman Trophy. So I feel like he was a completely different caliber. He's probably one of the best running quarterbacks literally ever.
Lamar Light. Is that a better term? Lamar Light.
See, but then Malik Willis is like a heavy, heavy kind of guy or whatever. He's a unique profile.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll see. I don't want to bury Zach for Malik Willis. We'll see. I liked Malik Willis, just not after he got drafted in the third round by the Titans. So
Hmm.
number 10, I've got Aaron. Could have gotten a couple different picks here. I kind of feel like this is sort of like a tier, if you will, like the start of another tier. Aaron, I think, also sort of decided to take a certain direction with his team, and I think that direction was looking towards the future. You could even look at that towards the tail end of last year when he traded away Cooper Cup and traded away Dalvin Cook for extra first round picks. I think it was more than just the first round picks. I think he got some seconds and stuff like that as well. And then in the draft this year, he got Drake London at the 102, which I thought was a great pick. I was really interested to see if it was going to be Kenneth Walker or Drake London at 102. I think Drake London was a great pick there. And then he's got decent depth throughout his roster. So I would still say like a cut above where Zach and Brandon's rosters are right now this exact second. But I think still kind of a fair distance away from like making the playoffs, if you will. It's a quick summary on Aaron. Any thoughts from you guys?
I had him a little bit higher just because I think he still has some really good players on his team. I
He
think,
does.
AJ Brown, Marquise Brown went to, Arizona, and he's going to be the wide receiver one for a couple weeks there. And
Christian
Derek
Kirk.
Carr's getting some weapons. Like, I just think he has a lot of strength on his team that's panning out. Zach Wilson getting additional, I don't know. I think he has the potential to be a contender, be a little higher.
I can see that. I can see that. I'm looking at his starting lineup right now too. Derek Carr, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, AJ Brown, Traylon Burks, Marquise Brown, David Njoku, Drake London, Zach Wilson. Right, all of those guys I think have the ability to put up strong individual weeks. I feel like it's definitely within
He's even got,
reason.
some potential like, wide receiver threes between MVS and Christian Kirk, or they could be wide receiver twos, even wide receiver ones, depending on their situation, how it pans out. So he has some potential depth to supply him as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had him at number 10 as well. I think next year though, I think his team's gonna be badass. I put most likely a top five team next year. He picked up a lot of talented guys in the draft. We just don't know about them yet. So the projection is that they're gonna be great, but we don't know yet. And then if Zach Wilson can take a next step, he'd have a QB 1 to 2, and we'll see if Pickett can get that starting job. But his wide receiver room, man, is going to be crazy. Like Anthony said, he got AJ Brown, Marquise Brown. It's going to be nuts. So
Traylon Burks. Yep.
yeah, Traylon Burks. I mean, he's kind of like reminds me of DK. Just the raw talents there, super big, super fast. So we'll see. The only surprising thing is I felt like he should have took Walker at the 102. I felt like his running back room needed more help than his wide receivers did. But I mean, London's a great prospect. I mean, so I don't know. I can't blame him for that. So yeah, that's the only thing. I felt like he should have took Walker at the 102.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm not gonna blame him for picking London. That
When
makes
I
me
was
feel
sitting
good.
at the 103 and I knew I was basically going I knew Brees Hall was going 101 and
Hmm.
it was basically I'm like, at the 103 I'm probably either going to get a shot at either Drake London or Kenneth Walker. And so I studied up on both of them or whatever, and I think
Yeah.
I was looking a little bit more forward to getting Drake London if I could have at the 103. So a little bit bummed that that didn't happen, but of course traded the pick anyway, so it kind of didn't matter. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think Drake London's going to be good. I think he'll be an interesting player. So number nine, I've got Johan finishing in the same place that he did last season. So nine again. He still has a good roster. I think he hasn't made a bunch of moves per se. The only thing he's done since the offseason started has been drop three players. He's dropped James Washington, he's dropped Damian Williams, and he's dropped Latavius Murray. So he's just trimmed his roster down. His starting lineup, he still has some good individual strong players there. He's got Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. He's got Thielen, is a little older. Robert Woods is older. Chase Claypool, we'll see. Dawson Knox, Rashad Penny. So maybe this is a little bit higher. Maybe I feel like now when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking maybe Aaron's should be one higher above
Hmm.
Johan here. Now that I'm
That's what
thinking
I
about
had it.
this,
That's where
yeah,
I had it.
a little bit more in depth, but
Crazy.
yeah, I mean, I just like I said, I kind of feel like this is sort of like a tier of I don't feel like these bottom four, 9 to 12, are going to be super close. I just think compared to the teams that are going to be in like the top six, I think there's just like the gap is fairly large. But Johan he makes good in-season decisions a lot of the times. He was in the finals just 2 years ago, so I think that was also a little bit of my thought process too. It's just like I think if he works hard at it and he puts effort into the season, I think he can always put together a strong roster because he's a smart guy. So I think that's where I had him at.
I think Yohan's got the oldest team in the league, and I'm worried about him. Is a couple injury, and he's got a little injury prone team as well. So if a lot of his players are getting injured, Henry's not invincible anymore, as you saw, like he was leading in the beginning of the year, and then as soon as Henry went down, take a huge step back. So yeah, his team's getting old.
He's got all of his picks. He doesn't trade his picks away. So
It's
there's
very
that.
true.
There's that.
Very true.
He's in a better spot than some for sure.
I had him at number 7.
You had him a ways higher. Yeah.
Yeah. I know he has the older one of the older rosters in the league, but I feel like he can win. He has a top 10 QB. He had the number one running back, and before he got hurt, he was like the number one running back for like 2 more weeks after that. I felt like, so if he can replicate that, and if Penny can do what he did towards the end of the season, I felt like he has two RB ones. He has Lamar and Tannehill, right? And Tannehill could put decent numbers, so I feel like he can win a lot of games and get into the playoffs and make some noise. That's why I have him number 7. That assuming everyone stays healthy. So
Honestly, I just don't see the depth. I don't see any like he's one or two injuries away from
yeah.
just not having anything.
Oh, and I put him that high because like last year, I think he had the worst luck out of all of us. Um,
Hmm.
and I feel like I feel like he can't have that same bad luck again. So I have him that high. I feel like he can at least be middle and sneak into the playoffs if he has a few good games. So
All right. So number eight, I have Lee, which would also be what he had finished at last season. So not a huge jump here. I'm looking at Lee's roster right now. Transaction wise, he's made one trade in the offseason. He traded, um, yeah, this was in the offseason. Traded away Aaron Rodgers to Johnny, acquired Odell Beckham, the curse himself. Could not hate this trade more. Just just by including that in there. And then also Daniel Jones. So he was very, very skittish that Aaron Rodgers was going to be retiring. This trade also happened in February, so it was a while ago. I totally get it. Obviously, now
Yeah.
hindsight is 2020. We can kind of laugh at this a little bit, but I mean, truly, Aaron Rodgers could be out, next year, maybe the year before, or whatever. Like he's just a really unique guy, so I understand like the need to get out from that. Probably could have got more, but that's the way that it went down. Then I just look at the rest of his current roster, and I cannot. I just hate all of these players. Just you've got Deshaun Watson. Like I don't even feel like I need to get into like the into the depths of everything that is wrong with that and everything. But okay, so if he plays, he'll probably play well, and obviously is a good fantasy quarterback. But man, what a situation! And to be rooting for. I just wouldn't want that on my conscience to be rooting for the guy. So he's got Deshaun, he's got Odell. He's just a curse on every single team he's ever on. He's also currently not on an NFL roster, so we'll see what happens. Um, he's got Kyle Pitts, who I do like. I do like Kyle Pitts for sure. But then Jones is in a weird spot with that quarterback situation. Kirk Cousins I do like. I mean, I just don't see a lot of players that I'm very excited about. I feel like maybe I should have Lee lower than I do, to be honest. But I got him at 8 for some reason. I think probably primarily just if Deshaun Watson plays, I think he can probably get up that high with just winning that number of games. That's where I've got Lee.
I think it's a fair assessment. I think that's where I had him, but I forgot OBJ was on his team, so he probably should be 12. But just he had one of the better running back cores, like Leonard Fournette. If AJ
Hmm.
Gibson stays healthy and whatnot,
He's
and
got
David
Sutton,
Montgomery,
Sutton on the rise, getting
yeah,
Russell Wilson.
right. Like Kirk Cousins is very steady at a QB 2, like 13, barely 14 ish. So he's got some decent talent. That's why I put him a little bit above. But OBJ is a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, I got him number 9, and I only have him number 9 is if Massage Watson, if he doesn't play. If he doesn't play, which he probably won't, he's number 9. But if he plays, I feel like he can sneak into the playoffs. But it's a low number 9. So, but I do like his running back room. People always sleep on David Montgomery. Only reason why I don't is because I traded him and he was like RB, I don't know, fucking like 3 or something. So that year I traded him, he was like I think top 5 or top 10 the year I traded him, and I regretted it because I traded him for, I don't know, nothing that great. So, but yeah, he has a really good running back room. Um, but yeah, if Watson plays, he can do some damage. But 9's where I got him.
All right. Number 7, I've got Jeremy. Primarily just because
Oof.
Jeremy's finished number 7 the last couple of years, and he actually finishes the regular season as number 6, but because of our playoff rule where it goes to the next, the team with the highest points, whatever, he's gotten bumped to 7th, and so I just felt like poetic. I had to put him at 7. I feel like he's in like the 5 to 7, 5 at best, 6, 7 ish or whatever. So I just put him at 7 because I just had to fulfill the prophecy at 7. So Jeremy's team, like I said, I kind of feel like there's tiers to this. I feel like maybe like the bottom 4 is like a tier, and then like you could make arguments, which we have, where it's like Lee has a shot at the playoffs. Perhaps Jeremy has a shot at the playoffs. If you make the playoffs, you never know what could happen or whatever. So like theoretically, it is possible there. And Jeremy, I think his team is it's got some guys for sure. He's got Trey Lance, he's got Justin Fields, quarterbacks that necessarily haven't quite proved it yet, but they're sort of the prototypical like, young running type quarterbacks that you would want in a dynasty league if they can sort of put it together. So he's got that going for him for sure. He's got Jonathan Taylor, who's, the number 1 fantasy player. He's got CeeDee Lamb, he's got DK. He's got Mooney. He's got Kittle. I mean, his lineup is actually pretty solid, like top to
Hmm.
bottom. He also has pretty decent depth. That's a little bit of a weakness for him, I would say, somewhat. But I'm sure that if he's like paying attention and going for it and everything, he can plug the pieces like along, throughout the course of the year and everything. So like to see some improvement there, but he can get that done. And he's got most of he has actually traded quite a bit of his draft picks away. So he's got some assets there, but we'll see. I don't know. I feel like 7 is a good spot for him.
Yeah, I'm gonna put Jeremy on blast real quick because he, fun fact for the league, has the third most winning record. He is 15-11 and has not been in a playoff. So I think 7 is the right place to have him because he tends to win a lot, just doesn't get as many points. But yes, pretty much the same comments as you, Tyler. He has a really strong team up front. His starting lineup is very strong. He does need his QBs to hit. I think if they do, he could definitely move up the depth chart. But I think 7's where he'll be.
Can't believe you guys. I have my man Jeremy at number 5. Yeah. I just feel like Justin Fields I'm not that high on, but I feel like Trey Lance, which I tried to trade for. He didn't want to give me him. But I feel like Trey Lance is gonna in that offense with that cannon arm, I think he's gonna do great. And then you have Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, and then I know James Robinson's hurt, but when he comes back, he can do that one-two punch in Jacksonville. And then his wide receiver room is probably second best in the league, right behind yours, Tyler. I like his wide receiver. I mean, top, when I'm looking at the first three, his depth, like you said, is kind of iffy. But the first three, I mean, it's a pretty good room right there. So I don't know. I feel like if everything goes right, he can hop into the playoffs. I have him number 5.
All right. So now we're cracking into the top 6 for me anyway. So this would be a playoff team, and I've got
Oh my!
Johnny. I've got Johnny in at number 6 here. You know, he swinging for the fences, super, super, super hard. I mean, just compare this on the left side of the screen here, if you're looking at the screen, to where he finished last year. So he's 1-13, lowest number of points scored, and he essentially sold every possible thing he could sell to get to just like bolster that starting lineup. And I think just based off of what he's put together, when you take a look at it, his starting lineup is pretty formidable. And I would definitely say, like, if they have an on week, like they should be able to. Okay, first of all, he should be able to pick up wins against, unless he has like an off week or whatever. Look at all of the teams below him. Like, that starting lineup should beat any of those starting lineups. And then if he has a good week, he could be extremely competitive with any of the teams above him as well, especially if they're on an off week or whatever. So just kind of by that, if everything goes right, I feel like around 6 is around the right spot for him. I think his major issue, and I know we're only talking about this year specifically, is just he does not have the future depth like at all. He doesn't have draft picks to be able to build off of everything. He sold everything third round and above through 2025. So he really isn't going to have a high pick. And then we're really only looking at the starting lineup too. The starting lineup is great, like I said, but his bench is bad, and you need to rely on the bench every single, when you get into the bye weeks, you get injuries, you have to rely on the bench. And Johnny doesn't have useful player. He just does not have useful players on his bench, period. And he doesn't have any of the draft picks or the other assets or anything like that to get players to help him. So, like I said, if everything like goes well, I could see, who knows, crazier things could happen. He maybe could even win a championship. I just don't think it's very likely because the other teams that are above this are just more complete, and Johnny needs everything to go perfect, and it's just such a small chance, in my opinion.
Okay, I have Johnny actually ranked higher, and let me tell you why. Let me go on my little pedestal real quick. First of all, he got rid of the curse, and ever since then,
It's
let me
true.
just list off a
True.
couple players. Russell Wilson, hyped up. He's gonna have a great year in Denver. They see him just letting Russell cook, right? T. Higgins, as you had mentioned before,
Love
has
T.
been talked
Higgins.
up. He has
Love
been
T.
talked up.
Higgins.
He's doing extremely well. They expect him to be a top 10 wide receiver, and potentially with Jamar Chase as well. Michael Pittman Jr. Oh my God, this guy is talked about so
He
much,
has been
Tyler.
an
I think
offseason
he messed up.
darling.
I think he messed up.
I may
He,
have sold a
I think he
little bit
messed up.
short on that.
I
May
think he
have
messed up.
sold a little bit short. Yep.
So yeah, Goddard is been talked about as well as doing. Aaron Rodgers got his contract. Like Johnny's luck has been nothing but turned around since he traded OBJ, and I just see him winning games this year. So I had him at 5th.
I mean, like I said, I think he will probably win a lot of games because I think that there's enough teams in the league that are just not in great positions to compete with somebody who wants to throw together all the talent in the starting lineup or whatever. Like as long as that talent is playing and staying healthy, I mean, just by just sheer brute force, I think he's going to win those games against the bad teams. That's going to get him in kind of striking distance in the playoffs. And like I said, if he picks up another win or two or three against even good teams, because he has great weeks here and there, which is totally possible. It's fantasy football. Crazy things happen every now and then. Like, he can get enough wins to get into the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, I'm really happy you guys are high on Johnny. I have him at number 8, and that's just because I'm just skeptical about his roster. I mean, I agree with you. His starting lineup is really good, but like everyone gets hurt. Like there's not been a
Hmm.
time where no one has got hurt. You know what I mean? Or like on someone's roster. And like you said, if one person falls, doesn't matter which position, he doesn't have the depth to fill that position. At least not that we're seeing right now. So I love my boy Johnny, but I had to rate him a little low, just for that. But I did that to hopefully anti jinx him so he can make the playoffs. So
He has the luck. Let me tell you, Devontae Parker or Kendrick Bourne, they're gonna go off one of them.
hmm
So he's
hmm
gonna have wide receiver depth there. He's gonna have Gus Edwards become the RB1 when Dobbins goes down. I'm telling you, his luck is only on the up and up.
I
yeah,
don't like to hear these things. I'm not a fan of this. J.K. Dobbins protects J.K. Dobbins.
hey, I tried to take him from you.
Anyways, the one time I've ever seen a someone like make a run where everything goes perfect on the Glass Cannon team, Anthony, you might remember this in the LC League. Jasper's little brother Jesse had just like the perfect run. This was, I think, maybe your first year in that league. Jesse
Yeah,
wins the championship, and it was the exact same situation. Glass Cannon team, but everybody, he hit on every single draft pick, and everyone stayed healthy. He didn't have like a single injury all year. It was a very strange year. And Jesse with kind of like this very like ho hum team, but just like stayed together, very sturdy, won the championship. So it's
can
happened
happen.
once. I've seen it
It can
happen
happen.
once, but been playing a while. Don't see it very often.
If McCaffrey can stay healthy, it's gonna be nuts.
Yep.
Let's
Yes,
just say
sir.
that.
So number 5, I've got Randy. So Randy, new kid on the block. Inherited a good roster, like for sure, in terms of rosters to inherit for
hmm
teams and whatnot. Like moving into a pretty good situation. Um, Sam has told me I haven't spoken with Randy. Like I haven't actually spoken with him, just texted with him here and there, but he seems like a very very smart guy. I'm excited to see like what he's doing in the league. He's obviously a lot more active than Chris. We were just mentioning how Chris like only sent 13 messages or something like that in the history of his participation in the league. Love Chris, but I'm pretty sure Randy's already sent more than 13 messages since then. So he's going to be an active manager. He inherited a pretty decent team. I mean he really has. He's got
hmm
Justin Herbert, he's got Mixon. Connor had a great. He's coming off of a great year. Keenan
Yeah.
Allen, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown. Like he's got a solid team, and Chris like didn't trade away any of his draft picks or anything like that too. So he's got all of that future basically available for him as well. So well-rounded team, and I think decent top end talent as well with some of those guys on there, like especially Justin Herbert. So I've got Randy at 5.
Yeah, I had Randy one step down just because of the whole luck of Johnny, but no, everything you said, he has a really solid running back core. I think Mixon's going to go off this year. He went off a little bit last year. They just improved the line. Wide receiver room, like he's got some. They're aging, but they're still going to perform. No, I wouldn't be worried about any of them. So, outside of the whole Antonio Brown trade, but from that, he's definitely got a good roster.
Yeah, I got him at number 4. Yeah, his roster's pretty slept on. I mean, got Herbert. His running back room's pretty good.
This
Aaron
roster, I
Jones.
believe, made the playoffs both years that we've had it, right? Because Chris is. I think Chris made
Yeah,
the playoffs both years.
Yeah,
yeah.
I gave him Mixon last year. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, his running back room's great. Um, his top two wide receivers, they can easily be wide receiver ones, high wide receiver twos. But yeah, nothing else to say. I got him number 4. I think he can make some noise in the playoffs.
Alrighty, moving on. I
Oh,
gave myself number 4, and so basically this really kind of came down to like I think that I have a decently strong team, but I'm impressed and showing some reverence towards the teams in front of me as well. So the teams that are in front of me, Jasper, Anthony, Sam, I'll show the order later or whatever. But for Jasper, he's the reigning champion, and he put up the most points last year by a fairly wide margin if you actually look at the points scored. He just rock solid all along. He didn't have to push in a lot of chips, in terms of like future draft picks and everything like that to build the roster that he has. So I still feel like he has flexibility to like continue to be a contender in that way. None of his players are like exceptionally old or anything like that, like or on the verge of retiring. So I think Jasper is like still going to be a force. Anthony made great moves over the offseason as well. I think we'll talk about his team or whatnot, but I kind of feel like I had to continue to have Anthony in front of me. And so really it was just kind of like the question mark was like, was I going to rate myself above Sam or not? And I'll talk about Sam's team, but I was just impressed with Sam's team as well. And Sam is also a smart player. He still has other assets to be able to make more moves or whatever. And so it was sort of like a coin flip between me and Sam, and I just gave the nod to Sam here. But I will say that I like my team. I like the. I didn't have a draft pick this year because I ended up trading all of them away. Got Josh Allen and Kelsey, which I thought were important additions to what my team needed specifically. I didn't really have like the super high end tight end talent. And then, you know, I had Tua. I know he's going to be, the number one quarterback for sure, but a little bit worried about that second one because Trevor Lawrence just didn't. He was in a bad situation. So I went out and got Josh Allen. I guess we'll hope that he continues on with that super high utilization rate and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I finished fourth last year. Had a kind of, I would say, a sort of fortunate run schedule-wise and points-wise. I definitely didn't score the most points, but got in there. So yeah, I've got myself at 4.
yeah. I actually have you the exact same spot. I think it was very interesting that we all joked around about your team being competitive in 5 years. But to be honest, you have made so many roster flips and changed and sold off a lot of that youth and got a little bit of some elite talent. Getting Allen, getting Josh Allen, getting Dalvin Cook, getting Saquon Barkley, getting Josh Jacobs, like all these people, Cooper Cup, like Travis Kelsey. All these people were never on your team, but it sounds like you're more likely to compete now. This year, I think you could win. You definitely have a shot at it. You'll be in the playoffs, but I'll be a little more scared next year. All those 2023 first round picks coming through.
I'm not sure that, to be completely honest, I know those rookies and everything like that are going to be exciting players and everything, but the rookies usually don't do super well in like their initial year, right? It usually takes a rookie a year or two to kind of catch on or whatnot. So I'm not, even though I'm excited about all of those picks and everything like that, I'm not 100% sure that they will actually. Um, we'll have to see like how often they crack the starting
I mean,
lineup
you can give
for
me him.
future
You
years.
can give me your picks.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
take
yeah,
them.
yeah. We'll
Not
talk. We'll
advantage.
talk. We'll talk.
You can get
I,
Bijan. You can get some running backs. I'll perform right away.
I got your number 2, Tyler. Just looking at your roster, and I didn't even take into account your draft capital. If we were doing like a dynasty longevity, you'd probably be number 1 for me. But I mean, I'm looking at your roster. You have potential QB1 overall, a potential RB1 overall. You literally have the top 3 wide receivers, and you just picked up Travis Kelsey, but Gasecki and Komet's supposed to be poised for a breakout year. So I mean, I I honestly think you have the best roster behind Anthony. So that's where I got you.
All right, all right. Appreciate that. So number 3, I have Sam. So like I said, it was kind of a coin flip when I was doing my own rankings between my own team and Sam's team. Sam's team has a little bit more history. Obviously, he scored more points than me last season. He also beat me in the consolation bracket or whatever to get that third place. So, even just kind of reverence towards history there. He had the number one overall, so he drafted Brees Hall. He was able to trade, or he acquired that, traded away Jalen Hurts, but that was because he could afford to do that because he had Kyler, and then Jameis is the guy this year, so was able to kind of capitalize on that extra QB that he had there. Gets the number one overall rookie. Hawkinson is great tight end. His wide receiver room is great. He's got Debo, DJ Moore, and Juju Smith, Schuster. So I think that's solid. And then if his running backs are playing well, they're a little bit older, but they're still gonna get their groove on and everything. Nick Chubb and Alvin Kamara, good players, and so his lineup is good. His lineup is good. He still has a decent amount of draft picks. His well balanced team. I think that was good for number three for me. And then also, like I said, if Kyler's playing really really well, I really do love Kyler Murray. I was super excited when he was on my team. He was one of my favorite players. He still is one of my favorite players, even though he's kind of had a dramatic summer thus far. But I would say Sam is definitely in contention still.
Yeah, I think he has a very well-rounded roster, and he has even on his bench like so much upside. There's so many players that could be in line for a lot of work. If injuries go their way or something happens in front of them, kind of thing. So in addition to it's a good starting lineup, I have him third as well, just because I feel like so many of his players are so like on the cusp of being like number one elite, but a lot of them just haven't been there. Something's gone wrong. And just looking at his lineup, a lot of things like continue to happen, like the small things, like Kyler Murray not following them, Debo saying no asking for a contract, but wide receivers got paid, so it makes sense. DJ Moore not having good QB play, Juju Smith-Schuster going to Kansas City is gonna be brand new, but could again potentially be wide receiver one. So just so many things that kind of have to align themselves, but he could have like the best team essentially. So, oh, to be seen.
I have Sam at number 6. A little low, right outside, within the top 6, but I don't know. It's
Below
just
Johnny, you've got Sam below Johnny.
no. Sam
No,
No?
above
John was
Johnny
8.
for me.
Okay, I couldn't
Yeah,
remember where Johnny was for you. Okay.
yeah. Johnny's 8. No, I have Sam like if we're going top 6, like the upper half of the league. Only because the quarterback room just scares me. He's real thin there, and like I said, what I've learned last year is that you need QBs to win. Like I was rocking with Baker and Mac for my two QBs, and that just made me realize you need good QBs. If he kept Jalen Hurts and didn't trade me Hurts, and he didn't even have Brees Hall, he would still be top 3 for me. But I just feel like if Murray gets hurt, Winston gets hurt, or even if Winston doesn't get hurt, he just makes dumb decisions like he did in Tampa Bay. I don't know if he can win a lot of games like he did last year. So that's just what I see. It's just the QB. His rest of the roster is amazing. And if Murray and Winston can do their thing, it's going to be good. But I just have that glass cannon in that QB room specifically for me for Sam. So
Debo could take a step back as well. He had super high utilization rate last year, and
mm,
so they potentially don't want to burn him out. He also was used in like a very unique situation last year where I think San Francisco had some injuries. They had some unique stuff going on or whatever to where they kind of really needed somebody to sort of do that. But then
yeah,
also, Mike McDaniel was the offensive coordinator. He's now the Dolphins head coach. And like I said, that was kind of like a unique way they were using a player. Usually you don't have a wide receiver who's kind of in that running back mode, which is essentially what he was, and getting a lot of points that way. So Debo could probably potentially take a step back for
yeah.
sure. So we'll see. But
I do want to say if Ritter ends up winning the starting job or pulls a Russell Wilson, because I wanted Ritter over Corral, but he drafted Ritter. Then he could be top 3 if Ritter plays good for a rookie, plays well for a rookie. He's mobile, he's athletic. I feel like he can do a good job. That's if he wins. But like I said, just the QBs. That's what that's what gives me concern for his team.
absolutely. So moving into the top two here. So I do have Jasper as number two. I wanted to respect Jasper as a number one as the reigning champ. I probably should have. I probably absolutely should have. I'm talking myself out of it right now in this exact moment. But I honestly, I've really just kind of had to reflect a little bit on some of the things that happened in the offseason. As I mentioned, I think Jasper's team is fantastic. It just won the championship. He's no nonsense. Didn't make a lot of trades. Didn't make a lot of moves. He still has all of his future assets and everything. Could very easily, win the championship this year. So, this could be a 1A and 1B type situation. Just because Jasper. The other thing too is Jasper just, even though he didn't make a lot of moves, I've played fantasy football with him for a decade plus at this point, a really long time. I just know Jasper. He's a smart guy. He makes good moves when he has to make good moves. I swear, I think he's made the playoffs in almost every single fantasy league that I've played with him in. He's, if not 100%, it's got to be at least 80% of the time he makes the playoffs. He just wins all the time. Maybe a little bit less, number of championships. I know he won this championship. In the LC League, he hasn't actually won. He's one of the only people that hasn't, but it wouldn't surprise me if he has one of the highest winning percentages in the whole thing. He's just a good fantasy football player. His roster is good, obviously. Um, it's got depth. It's, like I said, it has all the future assets as well. I'm bringing it up right now. Scored the most points by far. He's got Joe Burrow. He's young. He's got Devontae Adams, McLaurin, Cooper, Mark Andrews. I sold him Mark Andrews. I probably didn't get enough for it. I've made a lot of bad moves. I've helped some teams get really good along the way. A lot of this is my doing. Stafford, so he had both the Super Bowl quarterbacks. Davis Mills is on the bench. Davis Mills did great. He made the best pickup of the year last year, picking up Cordarrelle Patterson. He won that sweepstakes. Hunter Renfrow, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry. Anyways, he's loaded. It's a loaded roster, and it just puts up points every single week. Maybe he should be number one, but I've got him at number two here.
Yeah, I had Jasper at number one myself, and I put myself at number two just because if you look at his total points for the last 2 years, it's like a 250 point difference. Like his team just puts up
Is
points
he the number one
regardless.
winning percentage for both
He
seasons put
is.
together?
I
Yeah.
I mean, him and I have the same winning record, but like I said, he wins because of points,
Mm-hmm.
and like 250 points total, that is a huge difference. So with that and like just top to bottom, the well-roundedness, that's why I have him at number one.
Yeah, I got him at number three. Just right outside the top two. After you guys. I mean his roster's strong. Um, sorry, his roster's strong. He didn't make any changes. I just feel like he's not gonna get that production like he did with Patterson last year. I feel like Adams is gonna take a step back. In Las Vegas. I know Carr was his college quarterback, but I just feel like it's not Aaron Rodgers. But even then, I still feel like he's top three. Pretty sure he'll be in the championship and all that stuff. But yeah, could repeat. So that's where I got him.
Shout out to Jasper for being a huge Packers fan and then also being able to draft Christian Watson. Had Christian Watson fall to him at the end of the first round, that was a match made in heaven.
I thought he was gonna fall to me. The way they were falling. I was hoping I could grab him, but he got him.
Match made in heaven. Perfect player for Jasper's team. He always seems to have some players on his squad that really kind of just personifies his essence in one way or another. So good for Jasper. Number one overall for me, I had Anthony. Obviously, Anthony won the championship the first year. He got second this last year. So he's just in the finals. That's just what he does. Both years he's done that. And then I think with some of the moves that he made this offseason with the draft, like I said, he had good draft picks. He picked up Garrett Wilson. He picked up Jameson Williams. The thing is I love both of those picks. I was really impressed by Wilson. Like I said previously, I really, really like Jameson Williams. I'm bummed out that he's on Anthony's team because I just liked rooting for Jameson Williams. I was hoping that I was going to be able to get him. He just seems like a cool guy. So it's a bummer he ended up on Anthony's team for me personally. But the thing is I'm not even sure that he's going to need to rely on Garrett Wilson, and Jameson Williams is going to be hurt most of the year, so we'll see if he even plays. But I don't even think he's going to have to rely on those players to actually be contributors to his roster this year because the rest of his roster is so good. He's got Mahomes, arguably, one of the best quarterbacks. He's got, Prescott as well. So Mahomes and Prescott, I think probably the best QB duo in the league. And then his running backs are nasty. Najee Harris and Javonte Williams for sure. That's probably number one and number two, or you might make different arguments. Maybe it's number two and number three or something like that. But like for sure, he's got two of them in the top five, like at worst. And then his wide receivers are obviously like super great as well. He's got Tyreek Hill, Deontay Johnson, Chris Godwin. I'm not even mentioning his bench. His bench is fantastic. Um, just top to bottom. I don't, when we think about adding additional players in different years and everything, you guys are talking about me or joking around with me about no room to drop players. Anthony doesn't have very much room to drop players either for future years as well, because he's got good players in just about every single bench spot with not a lot of flexibility there. So, and then Darren Waller at tight end spot, right? Probably top five tight end for sure. And he's got a bunch of draft picks as well. So in terms of like the long-term dynasty perspective, he's got a lot of options. He can push chips into the middle to try to compete this year. So, I just I've got Anthony at number one.
I don't have much to say about my own team other than I feel like I well-rounded my team after this draft. I feel like I was still missing some loopholes in running back. I had DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams going to it, so I thought Najee was a huge pickup for me. I have a couple injuries going into the year, but I feel like I, have a lot of potential on my roster as well. I think, there's several pieces. Corey Davis could pick up some work in there if I don't hit with Wilson or whatnot, so I can bounce those two. Allen Robinson going to the Rams is going to be huge, so I'm excited about my team.
Yes, I have you at number one. It's just everything Tyler said. You also have the most fab in the league. So,
Don't
I
underestimate
mean,
that.
I played a major part in that, but I mean, you got it all, man. You got the draft picks, you got the roster, which is young too. Like it's not that it's a win now, but it's also young. I mean, aside from a few receivers, but I mean, everything else, man, is just it's just crazy. Adam Troutman about to break out for the third year in a row, fourth
Yes,
year in
he
a row.
is. Yes, he is.
I mean, even your bench, he's got some sleeper running backs that I wish I had that I did have and I gave to you. Rashad White, Zamir White, I think they're gonna do decent. Yeah,
Anthony,
I
I
mean
think
nothing else
I
to
think
say.
your bench could probably, on a good week, beat a couple of these teams,
Yeah,
in the bottom nine or something like that. On a
yeah.
good week, catch them on a good week, they could win some games.
And I'm just crossing my fingers that Sam Darnold and Drew Lock are the starting QBs on both their teams.
I think you just want to sell Drew Lock. I think you just want him to start so that you can sell him because he's not the future. Seattle's moving off of him. So
What are you talking
I'm
about?
gonna put this on
Sell him.
blast right now. I don't. We're an hour and 7 minutes into the podcast. No one's gonna be listening by now. But if anyone's listening, don't buy Drew Lock. He's not the answer.
That's
He's
fine. I'll
not the
sell Sam
answer.
Darnold. Buy,
Third rounds
buy Sam Darnold.
only. Third rounds only.
Buy Sam Darnold. He's
Denzel
the answer.
Mims.
Who wants him?
Like Kadarius Tony. If Kadarius Tony hits, that'd be crazy. It's gonna be crazy. Oh
Oh,
my.
he's been talked about. He's the ultimate wild card.
Kadarius Tony hit for 1 week last year, and I felt like he was suddenly the heir apparent to wide receiver Hall of Fame or something like
Dude,
that. He
it's
only
all
had
of
one
his
good week.
players.
He only had one good week, but I don't know if it was because he plays in New York. The New York market obviously just loves their sports, and he just got all of the media attention or whatever. But like that 1 week, Kadarius Tony was just the hottest thing ever.
I
So.
think he hit a rookie record though. Like it's the highest ever kind of rookie thing in
But for like
the
one
history.
game though, but for like
Yeah,
one
yeah,
game. I
yeah.
think
Because
maybe
he
it was like
looked like
total
it was because
yards
he
or
looked
whatnot.
like OBJ making those cuts. Ugh.
He's an exciting player for sure, but he's just for whatever reason, it seems like it's probably more self-inflicted issues as opposed to other things or whatever. But
Yeah.
He had two double-digit games. He had a 14 game before and 11. I'm just looking at it now, a couple weeks after. So
what was the big
but
game?
yeah,
Did he score like 30?
twin against Dallas. Yeah, pretty much
It
29.6.
was like 20, yeah, 20 high 20s.
Yeah. So he had that one monster game, and then yeah,
The Allen Robinson, you were trying to sell him last year, and you I bet you're happy you kept him now. I mean,
I was like trying to sell him earlier, and then before he went to the Rams, and then I heard that, and I was like, you know what? I'm hold on to him because he might be a key piece in my play this year.
yep. Pretty good.
Well, gentlemen, I think this is a good list. I like to see a lot of similarities. Seems like we've got some similar thoughts here, and then with just a couple of them, some of the larger variances that Brandon had, I thought were some really cool, interesting points. And of course, this is why we play the games. We play not just to predict everything, but actually get out there and see what the players do and everything. And it'll be really interesting maybe to compare this maybe at the end of the season to what we predicted heading into it. I looked at last year's and there were definitely some interesting movements. But thank you guys again for taking the time to do this podcast. I hope everybody who's listening to this 1 hour and 10-minute thing has some fun. And we'll get some more people on future podcasts later. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.